but that doesn't mean you can't corner him and pick his brain about Mount Dora and the good works that are being done there. Dave actually today is going to talk to us about giving. I see you could probably sense a theme for the month of February. Dave actually is a financial planner as well as his work with the Mount Dora Children's Home. So he's going to talk to us today about not only being a cheerful giver and what that means, but also other ways that you can give of yourself that aren't always necessarily financial. So in planning and taking care of things like that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dave. And if you have questions as you go around, Scott Holden's going to have the microphone. And you know he loves to run back and forth. So thank you for being here, Dave. Thank you. Appreciate it.
It's a real pleasure to be here today. I think the last time I spoke, and that was the Children's Home presentation, was back in 2017. So it's been quite a few years since I've been here. Some of you might remember me from that time. But if you did, I'm glad that you came anyway. So that's good. Thanks for coming. I was scheduled to be at this church the first week, I believe, of June last year to give a talk. And I was vacationing at Marco Island, so I said, hey, while I'm down here, we kind of worked it out the same Sunday I was in town, I'd give a talk. I got on vacation and got sick. I wound up spending 3 nights at the local hospital with pneumonia. So I had to cancel that talk last June. So I'm really grateful that I'm here today, and I don't have pneumonia. So I'm grateful for that, or COVID or anything else. So feeling good and grateful for the opportunity. I do, as has been said, this talk is really not about the children's home. It's going to be about charitable giving, as you can see on the screen. But I did want to, and by the way, before I start, do I normally have a clicker, or who does the clicking of the slides? Where does that happen? Okay, it's up here? Okay. Excuse me a second. Thanks. No, yeah. Thank you. Okay, awesome. So go back. No, not that one. Okay. This talk is going to be about charitable giving, but before we get into that, I do want to just say thank you to those here who individually have supported the Children's Home over the years. I know there's quite a few of you here who have, and then to the church, and to the elders here. The congregation here has faithfully supported our work for I don't know how long, but for a long time. I'd say decades probably, and so we appreciate that support. It means a lot. We have kind of 3 main sources of donations that come in. Surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly after you hear the talk today, but the number one source of donations in most years, it varies of course, but is estates. Yes, we have a lot of people who remember us in their wills and trusts and donate money to us through their estates. And so that is actually, this past year was our number one source of donations. Number 2 is individual donations, from all the individuals out there around the country that give to us. And then number 3 is church contributions, so like what you do here. So it's a very important source of revenue. I think last year we brought in somewhere in the neighborhood of $300,000 from church donations as opposed to individuals or estates. And so it's very much, we're grateful for it. Today, though, I want to talk about how you as Christians, and particularly those who a lot of what we're going to say here today is kind of more geared toward the senior age group. But so if you're not in the age group, some of the things we talk about will apply today. Some will not. But maybe you have parents or other people in your sphere of influence that can benefit from the information as well. But we're going to talk about how you can be a smarter, more effective, more tax-effective charitable giver. There's nothing wrong with writing checks. We love to get checks. I know your church loves to get checks from you. And when I say giving cash or checks, really, these days, of course, that can include, giving through a church app or giving online, bank drafts, putting actual money, if anybody still does that, in the collection plate, dollar bills, remember those? But, there's so many ways you can give, right? But all of those, what we generally refer to as cash. But what I'm going to say today, as wonderful as those all are, and I'm certainly not saying don't do that, there are sometimes smarter ways to do it. They're going to be more effective for you than simply, quote, writing a check. And so we want to look at those today. And here's what I hope will happen. Everybody's situation is different. I get that. But I hope that everybody would take away just at least one actionable item. There'll be something in here that you'll see that, oh, I need to follow up on that. I need to do that. That's interesting to me. I'd like to learn more. And so if that happens, then I feel like it's been a successful time together. Okay, let's jump to this screen and see if I'm doing this the right way. Yes. Our generation has been extremely blessed, haven't we? I mean, I think we can all say amen to that, right? We are a blessed generation. I mean, you drive around this town. We are materially, we are very blessed. We're blessed in many ways, but that's certainly one of them. And this figure on the board, $68 trillion, represents how much is going to pass to the next generation from all of us, right? So I'm not sure the time period this figure is based on, but there's the largest ever transfer of wealth is about to happen, over the next couple of decades or whatever. Now, just to put that in some perspective, the federal government budget is $6.9 trillion. So this is 10 times the federal budget. The deficit, this has maybe gone up a tad since I calculated this, but it was about $34 trillion, so about half of this figure here. So $68 trillion is a lot of money. And so that begs the question for us as Christians, what are we going to do about this? We've got these assets. We've been blessed materially. We probably more than we were, when we were young people, we probably could not have imagined that we'd ever be living the style of life we are now and having what we have now. But we've been very blessed. So begs the question as Christians, what we do about that, how can we best honor God with our wealth, serve His church, and then help humanity, help our communities, bless the generations to come. And so that's what we want to look at in the talk today. The prosperity we have, just to go back a minute, really is unprecedented. Now, I bet all of you have stories similar to this at least. But just looking at my own family, I thought we were middle class growing up. I don't know. I was a kid. Didn't think about it that much. But my dad tells me, just another generation back, my dad growing up in the 1930s in an urban area, says their house did not have indoor plumbing. When they got the call of nature, they got to an outhouse in the back of the yard. Wow, that's hard to comprehend these days, right? Now we think we're poor if we don't have at least 2 or 3 bathrooms, right? We only have one. That's so our standard of living has really changed. My mother's parents, and this really, I wish I knew more detail about this, but they're all gone now. Wish I'd asked more questions when they were all here. But my mother's parents, when they were young, were sharecroppers. You believe that? You read about this in history books. They picked cotton in the South. And think about the house I grew up in. You think about the house you probably grew up in, or your parents did, but I don't know, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, frame kind of house. It could have been more than 800 square feet. It's pretty small by today's standards. And so, do you remember the first day you got a TV set? Or maybe your parents got a TV set. For most of us, I guess it's probably our parents. But that was a big day, wasn't it? I remember neighborhood kids coming over, wanted to see this. Of course, it had the little bitty black and white screen with a big case around it. It's like a piece of furniture, but small screen. And you probably know how many channels, right? 3. That was it, pretty much, back then. 3 channels, and they went off at midnight or whatever. So we really have changed a lot. We've been very blessed. Now, again, look at this, kind of I'll get this down here in just a minute. It's the bottom button. Okay. I love to read biographies of famous people because it inspires me to try, reach higher, dream bigger, see what my potential is. Because, it is true that one person can make a positive difference. One person can be a change agent in their world. All of us can, really. This man up here on the screen, Milton Hershey, is probably someone you know from, of course, the Hershey what? Candy Company, chocolate. Yeah, so really good stuff. I'm going to make you hungry talking about it, right? Have you been through the Hershey Candy Company up in Pennsylvania? It's a nice tour up there, they do. Yeah, so if you ever get a chance, not far from Lancaster and the Amish country, it's a nice vacation or area to visit. But he wasn't just a successful businessman, but he was what we call a philanthropist. He was a man who was extremely generous with his money. And like Lyle was talking about this morning, it wasn't that anyone made him do this. It wasn't that he had some rule he had to do this. But he wanted to do it. It was in his heart. He knew he'd been blessed. He wanted to help other people with his wealth. And so that's what he did. And in 1918, he and his wife did something really amazing. They had started a school and children's home, originally for boys, but later became co-ed, but up in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And he and his wife prayed about it, decided to give all of the stock in the candy company to the children's home and school to help support it indefinitely into the future. And so they did. They gave 100% of the stock. And at that time, as you can see in the New York Times story here, the front page story, it was a big deal. That stock had a value of $60 million. And of course, that has continued to fund the school over the years. Today, that same school, as you see, has a beautiful campus up in Pennsylvania and is home to about 2,000 students at the school. They still have the stock. You want to guess what that 1918 stock, is worth now? We went through the Great Depression, right? The stock market crash and World War II and lots of ups and downs. But that stock now, that $60 million, is worth $15 billion. And that was calculated, honestly, before the recent rise in stock prices, so it might be a little more than that now, but $15 billion. It's been a real blessing to that school. They, by the way, don't have people like me that have to go out and raise money for the home. They don't have to do that because they have plenty of, they live off the dividends from the stock pretty much. It's a nice way to be. So, the question for us is, we're not Milton Hershey. Some of you may have started successful businesses that were worth multi-million dollars, and that's great if you did, but most of us are not in that situation. But what can we do? What can we do to use our wealth successfully and to leave the world a better place? Nonprofits, have you ever thought about this? Nonprofits play a really big role in our country. There's a reason that they're tax exempt, because nonprofits do so much good for society, that government doesn't have to worry about or do. Nonprofits take care of sick children. Think about St. Jude Children's Hospital, organizations like that. Nonprofits, care for the sick. They feed the poor, provide shelter for the homeless. They educate our young people. They do lots of good things. But these are all secular nonprofits. I have nothing against those. But I'd like for us to think as Christians uniquely about what can we do to help our brotherhood, to help the church to grow with our wealth. What can we do? We got a good example this month, right? When I first contacted the church, I wasn't aware of this series that Lyle was doing and the commitment the elders made to try to pay down the debt. But it fits in really well with what we're saying today. Our world needs Jesus, right? Amen to that. Our world needs Jesus more than ever. Nothing's of greater importance. Feeding children and caring for the homeless are all very, very worthwhile goals, but nothing is more important than sharing Jesus with them. And our local churches and ministries like, what they call quasi-church ministries like Mount Dora Children's Home, that kind of an offshoot of the church, we are the hands and feet of Jesus. And we are what the world knows of Jesus and Christianity. And so we have a great responsibility. And all of us can do our part to help with that. So as we think about charitable giving and what our intent is and our opportunities are, we have two questions to ponder. How can I best support the Lord's kingdom while I'm here on earth, while I'm still living, using my resources? What can I do? What are the possibilities? And then secondly, how can I honor and leave a legacy for good, through my estate? And as I've already mentioned, that's an important source of giving. So today we're going to look at 6 popular ways of giving to charity. And again, these are especially focused on seniors, but many of them will apply regardless of your age. Some will not. And here's the ways you can maximize your giving that might be more efficient than simply writing a check or giving cash using the church app or whatever. The first one of these we want to look at is making a charitable bequest. Now, that's a fancy word, but it's pretty simple, really. A bequest is simply put your wishes in writing, like in a will. I want this money to go here or there. A charitable bequest, of course, is where you say, I want a portion of my estate to go to the Naples Church of Christ or to Mount Dora Children's Home or whoever it may be. Okay, so that's a charitable bequest. As I've already mentioned, this is a very important source of revenue for many nonprofits today. In fact, about 9% of all charitable donations nationwide come through bequests, about $39 billion in a recent year. So it's a big deal. And, they come in all sizes. You don't have to be wealthy. You don't have to be Milton Hershey to make an estate gift. They can come in whatever size, and they're always appreciated. And if you look at you go on campus of Harding University or Mount Dora Children's Home or any of our institutions in the Brotherhood, and you look at the buildings, many of them are named after people, right? Well, some of those people might be founders of the university or ex-presidents, so the building's named to them in honor of them. But probably more often than not, that building is named after someone because that person left money. Could have been while they're living, could have been through an estate, but they left a sizable amount of money that allowed the building of a new building, starting of a new program, et cetera. So I wish that more Christians would consider, when you do your estate planning, how can I honor God? How can I honor His kingdom? How can I help people with my estate? Sometimes it's just kind of a knee-jerk reaction, like, well, let's see, I got 2 kids, I got 3 kids, I'll divide one, half or thirds and be done with it. That's as far as we think. But I challenge you to think a little further. I'm not saying you got to disinherit your children. That's not the point. But are there ways you can divide that a little more creatively and find ways to help these worthy nonprofit causes? Like Lyle was saying in the sermon this morning, or I believe, I'm sorry, but maybe it was said afterwards too. Imagine the good we could do. Imagine what could be done here at your church if you didn't have debt. If that could get paid off by good members of the church here, you can do so much more. And in a broader sense, that's true throughout Christianity, throughout our brotherhood. How much more can be accomplished if more Christians will remember their church and Christian organizations through their estates. The first step, of course, to making a request is you got to have a will. Now, I won't ask for a show of hands here, but nationwide, less than half of Americans have a will, which is mind-boggling to me. Hello? As soon as you are in your 20s and have any assets at all, you need to start thinking about having a will. Once you have children, you better have a will, right? Because otherwise, you're not going to have any control over what happens to your children or your assets if something happens to you. And so we all need, regardless of age, if you're an adult, you need to have a will. So if you don't have that, I think that's very important. Now, you've got handouts with you, and I don't know if it had already started. Maybe you're following me, but the underlined words on the slides are in your handouts. I apologize if I didn't mention that sooner. So you can catch up with us where we are here, but most Americans do not have a will, so the government will decide who gets their inheritance. They will have no control of that. And by the way, if you don't have a will and the courts come in and decide, probate court, who's going to get your money and assets, I guarantee it won't be Naples Church of Christ. It won't be Mount Dora Children's Home, right? It won't be St. Jude Children's Home. It's going to be next of kin or however the courts, whatever the law says has to happen. So make a note on that in your margins. If you don't have a will, see an attorney, get that taken care of. Now, there are several ways to make a bequest, and we'll just do these real quickly, but you can leave a percent to charity. So remember the example I gave earlier. If you got 3 children, a simple way to do it is just divide 3 ways and then have a 4th%, perhaps. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. You can back off a little bit. That'll be next. A percentage where you just say, I want 10%, 25%, whatever, of my estate to go to XYZ charity. It's not recommended, by the way, to give a specific dollar amount in charity, particularly a higher dollar amount, because your estate might shrink or change. You may have later in life extreme medical costs, long-term care costs, those sorts of things, and so that could change the dynamics of your estate. So it's best to not give a dollar amount, but to give it a percent. Uh-oh, what did I do? There we go. Okay, this is where I got ahead of myself a minute ago. You can give a child's share to your as a bequest. In other words, this gives you a chance to take care of your children and to help charity as well. So going back to my example, you got 3 kids, divide your estate 4 ways instead of 3. So you're taking care of the 3 kids, and then the 4th one can be charitable. And of course, that 4th could be divided among more than one if you wish. It could be to your church, it could be to Mount Dora, it could be to wherever. So that's an easy way to do it. Now, again, when you're working with your attorney on your estate plan, all these issues can come up there, but it's good to think about it before you go see an attorney. You can also give a specific asset through your will. You may have a stock, common stock. You may have real estate holdings, farmland, groveland, whatever it may be that you own that you could consider giving at the time of your death. For instance, one day in the office, true story, phone rang. It was an attorney. Said a gentleman had from out of state actually had given money to us in his will. My partner and I in the office had actually never met the man or heard of him. We had no communication with him. Somewhere along the way, our organization had touched him or his family. Maybe it was from a presentation at a church like this. Who knows? But he put us in his will. And he didn't give us everything, but what he did was he had multiple rental properties, and he gave 2 of them to us. So it was very nice. We got 2 houses from this gentleman that we were able to then go in and kind of get ready to sell, work with a local realtor, and sell those, and then use the proceeds to help our charity. So that was very much appreciated. Occasionally, not as often, but occasionally there are situations where people give their entire estate to one or more charities. This gentleman here, Mr. Clayton, survived all of his immediate family there. He survived his wife and both children. The children had been students at our academy at Mount Dora. That's how he knew us. And so he had no real heirs to give his money to. He chose to give us his entire estate, his house, his car, everything in the house, and savings accounts, etc. And so that was, of course, very appreciated. Now you think, well, that's a pretty rare situation. And it is, but sometimes it's a situation where even maybe the children are doing extremely well. Gosh, my kids are way better off than I am. I don't necessarily need to give much or as much to them, so you divide your money in a different way. We even had situations, of course, occasionally too, where it's like, my kids, oh no, we're not on good terms. I don't want them to get my estate. That's too bad. Sorry for those situations, but it does occur occasionally. Okay, that was giving idea number 1, giving through a charitable bequest. Giving idea number 2 is a beneficiary designation. This is somewhat the same. You're still talking about an estate situation, right? Charity is not going to get your benefit of this, your money, until you pass. But beneficiary forms are something we kind of take lightly. You open a bank account, you open an IRA, you open an insurance or an annuity contract. You don't really think about it. There's just a form on there, one of many pages, right? Says who you want your beneficiary to be if something happens to you. And you just kind of hurriedly fill in some names. Well, here's the thing. Beneficiary forms take precedence over your will or trust. So you may have a very elaborately worded, worked out with your attorney, estate plan, but whoever the beneficiary is in that simple little form you filled out maybe 10 or 15 years ago, they are going to get those assets, not whatever your instructions are in your will. So that's good to know. It's legally binding. And it's important to review beneficiary forms periodically because your life situation changes. Just like reviewing your will is a good idea if not every year, at least every few years. You should do the same with beneficiary forms. So if you have an old life insurance policy sitting around somewhere that you maybe filled out that beneficiary form 20 years ago, you need to pull it out and say, well, gee, who was my beneficiary at that time? By the way, sometimes it can be a real surprise. Maybe it's an ex-spouse that you had a unpleasant separation from. They're still named as your beneficiary. They'll get the last laugh when you pass, right? So, so you want to update those forms and make sure they still reflect your current situation. Now, no, that doesn't apply to anybody here, I'm sure, but it could to someone somewhere. So beneficiary forms, as you might guess, are an easy way to give to charity. It doesn't have to be a person that's a beneficiary. It can be a nonprofit. Again, your local church, Mount Dora, wherever it might be that you want to give to. And so it's a nice way to give to charity because it's very simple, right? Completing or updating a beneficiary form is very easy. Larger financial institutions often have a form online. You just log into your account, go to that page, you can update your beneficiaries in a few minutes' time. And so you can add a charitable beneficiary in that way. The good thing, too, about beneficiary forms, it doesn't require, like having a trust document or something. It doesn't require going through an attorney. There's no cost involved to updating your beneficiary forms and including your statement. And by the way, when I talk about beneficiary forms, they come in a lot of varieties. Any of you familiar with through banks, especially what they call TOD or POD? Transfer on death. It's the same thing, basically, just different wording. But those forms, too, again, take legal precedence over what's in your will or trust. So it's important to take those seriously, and it's an easy way to remember charity when filling those forms out. Okay, now, here's a third way, and this is a really interesting one that anybody here who has a traditional individual retirement account really ought to give some thought to if you qualify. We mentioned IRA accounts have beneficiary forms, so that we'd already kind of hit on that side of it, but there's something new and different you can do with charitable giving opportunities through your IRA account. You've invested in these accounts, or you did invest in these accounts for years and years, right? You build them up, while you're working, and now you're retired. The beauty of it is all those years, the money accumulated, how much tax did you pay year to year? Zero, right? No tax while your IRA is growing and compounding. That was beautiful. But now, when you reach age 73, what does the government make you do? You got to start taking it out, right? Some of you know that, right? You're there right now, and so you've got to start taking the money out. And this is called, just to go back to your form, a required minimum distribution, or RMD is what it's referred to, in shorthand. But if you're age 73, again, this is not news to you. You're aware of it. So what does this have to do with charitable giving? Well, remember I said that money accumulated all those years tax-free, tax-deferred, really. When you hit 73, you got to start taking that required minimum distribution up here on the screen. All that is taxable. So every penny you take out during retirement is from your traditional IRA account is fully taxable. There's one workaround to it, though, and it involves giving to charity. The IRS says that if you give money to your church or any other qualified charity directly from your IRA, you can, one, count it as your RMD, and then, two, it's not taxable. So you could potentially save thousands of dollars a year in taxes if you have a larger IRA account by doing this. Let's say, for instance, your required minimum distribution this year is $15,000. Just take that as an example. If you do nothing, the entire $15,000 will be taxable to you. But instead, if you gift that $15,000 to a charity, directly to a charity, through your IRA, then it will your RMD requirement is satisfied, and no tax will be due on the money. So it's a beautiful thing. Now, there's another layer to this. It's not to confuse you, but the IRS has another opportunity there. If you're 70 and a half, you don't have to wait till you're 73, but anytime after 70 and a half, you can give up to $105,000 a year from your IRA account. Now, that's just what the IRS says. And it sounds like, whoa, that's a lot of money. But you can give that much money from your IRA every year to charity and not pay any tax on any of it. And, of course, again, if you're 73 or over, then a portion of that you give could cancel out your RMD. So it's a great opportunity. Now, what a lot of people don't, too, maybe fully understand is, and I think that's the last slide we just had there, so what did you miss there? 70 and a half, 105,000, okay. If you're filling in the blanks, okay, those are the key blanks we missed on that page. What a lot of people maybe don't understand is charitable donations are really not tax deductible for most taxpayers. Now, I know there are exceptions to that, but for the average taxpayer today, you can give to charity, give to your church, you're not getting a tax break on it like you did in the old days. You say, well, why is that? I mean, what's changed? I mean, in theory, charitable donations are still tax deductible, right? But in practice, it doesn't work that way because the standard deductions on taxes keep going up. They've raised them significantly. As you can see now on the screen, I'm sorry, I'm pointing to that screen. You're looking at this screen. My bad. But the standard deduction for the 2023 tax year for a married couple is $30,700. Of course, if you're filing as a single person or a qualified widow or something, it's going to be a little different. But the point is, most retired folks especially will not have enough qualified deductions to overcome the standard deduction. And so you really won't get any break for those donations that you made. You know, if you got your house paid off, you don't have any dependents living at home anymore, it's kind of hard to come up with that with $30,700 in deductions. And so it's good to keep that in mind. So if you're in your 70s or beyond, again, one of the best ways to save on taxes and to be smarter about your charitable donations is instead of writing checks to the church, instead give that money through your IRA account. Just reverse things. Right now, what your average person is probably doing, you're writing checks out of your income. It's coming out of your pension, Social Security, whatever it is. You write a check to the church or to charities from that, and you're not really getting a tax break on that. On the other side, if you're 73 or over, you're paying tax on your RMD every year that you take out. Flip things around. Start using that IRA money to give to charity, and no tax will be due on it. And then, instead of writing those checks, you can use that pension or retirement money for something, Social Security, for other purposes instead of giving it to charity. So that's all something to consider that can help you have a better future. By the way, I don't think I actually mentioned the term on that last slide. That is go back one, that right there. That's called a qualified, just in case you're talking to your tax advisor or something and you want to sound smart about it, it's called a qualified charitable distribution, or a QCD. The IRS has all these acronyms they like to use, but that's, a QCD is a qualified charitable distribution. That's what that's referred to where you make a charitable donation from your IRA. Okay, let me catch back up where we were now. So if this doesn't make sense, I'll be glad to talk to you about later or discuss it with you. But honestly, it's so good that it's hard for me to comprehend that really once you get this, it doesn't apply to almost everyone who's in that age category who has a traditional IRA. Why would you not take advantage of it and reduce your taxes? You can fill out a form. Again, most larger financial institutions have one. If not, you can write a letter. But you can fill out a form and say, I want to do a qualified charitable distribution, to charity. And the form will say how much you want to give, how often you want to give, what's the name of and address of the charity. It's pretty simple. And so you fill out that form and money comes. Now, let me be one caution about that. You've got to do it the right way. You can't, for instance, take money out of your IRA and then decide, well, I want to give that money to charity. I mean, you can do that, but you're not going to get any tax break for doing that. The money has to go directly from the charity from your IRA administrator to the charity. It can't be the other way around. Let's skip on that. Okay, a fourth way you can give to charity is to gift an appreciated asset. Now, what's an appreciated asset? Well, it could be, again, like we mentioned before with a bequest, it could be common stock. It could be real estate of various types. It could really be any asset. It could be some kind of collectibles or something. As long as there are marketable, kind of a asset that has a identifiable value and a market to sell it in, you can gift that to charity and avoid paying what's called the capital gains tax. You may be familiar with that tax. Anytime if you buy a piece of land, let's say for $100,000, hold it a few years, it's worth $300,000, then that profit, we sell the property, that profit is taxable. It's called a capital gains tax. So if you gift that money, or you gift that asset directly to charity, you avoid having to pay the capital gains tax. By the way, it struck me when Lyle was talking, that's a pretty good opportunity, if it fits anyone here, to help pay off that debt. Give an asset. Do you have anything that you could sell? You sell a house somewhere else that you're not using anymore, vacation house somewhere, or whatever it might be, maybe a business asset from your past business life. So think about that. It might make more sense to gift an asset to the church and avoid tax than simply writing a check. good opportunity there. Okay, idea number 5, and again, this is another one that I think has a lot of application for seniors. We see a fair number of these come in, or inquiries about this to our office, is a charitable gift annuity. Now, I suspect most of you, if you're older, you've heard the term annuity. Maybe you've been to some of these financial planning talks people give. Come have lunch with us and we'll tell you about annuities for retirement. Annuities play a pretty big role in retirement planning all the way around. And the thing about an annuity, whether it's where it originates, is, of course, you're using usually a lump sum of money. You're giving that typically to an insurance company, right, with a secular annuity. And then in turn, they agree to pay you a fixed amount of income. This is typical. Now, annuities come in all stripes and varieties, but a typical one that retirees might use. The appeal is the insurance company is going to give you a fixed amount, kind of guaranteed income for the rest of your life. And so that's a fair trade. You make the annuity and you get the income every month. A charitable annuity is similar to that, but it's not through an insurance company. It's through a charity. So it's issued directly by a charity. There's no insurance company, no commission, no agents or anything involved in the process. Otherwise, it behaves much the same way. The charity is going to agree to pay you a fixed amount of money on a monthly or quarterly basis. And then, with a normal secular annuity, you might call it, what happens, when you pass away, do your beneficiaries typically get the remaining principal back? No, it goes to the insurance company, right? They've met their obligation. They paid you monthly income for the rest of your life, kind of like a pension. But then once you pass, their obligation is over, and then they keep whatever money was left in the account. That's the way it works. Well, a charitable gift annuity, that's when the charity benefits. Once you pass, then the remaining money in that account, wherever it may be, goes to the charity. By the way, if you want to make the most of that situation and get the best of the charity, live a really long time. Because the longer we have to pay you an income check for the rest of your life, so I worked for one charity before Mount Dora, and they didn't like these because they said it seems like everyone we issue these to lives to 95 or over, and then we wind up there's nothing left in the account by the time they pass. So live a really long time. You'll get nice income every month, and you'll get most of your money back anyway. So that's something to consider. Okay, so typically these are issued in amounts of $10,000 or higher. I think the average charitable annuity like this is somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000, but that can be done for as little as $10,000. And we pay income typically on a quarterly basis, Mouse. All right, let me skip through a little bit of this because I assume that's the warning bell, right? Don't want to stand between you and lunch too much. Let's just go down to idea number 6. This is the last of them. A donor-advised fund is another way you can give to charity. It's a little more creative than simply writing a check. What's a donor-advised fund? Well, people like the Fords and S's up in Fort Myers, or people like the Vanderbilts. You see that name around here a lot in the history of the Vanderbilts. All of them had charitable foundations set up. Wealthy people set up foundations where they can give money to charity, and a lot of times those go on well beyond the original family's lifetime, and they continue into perpetuity. Well, a donor-advised fund is somewhat like that. It's sort of a poor man's foundation, charitable foundation, if you want to say it that way. You can set these up through a financial institution. The money gets invested on your behalf, and then you have the ability to give to charity from that fund. Let me give you an example. Setting up and why these make, by the way, better sense than a foundation for the average person. They're very easy to set up. Simple forms, kind of like opening an IRA or bank account. There's no attorneys involved, so there's no upfront cost to doing it. You can add money to a donor-advised fund at any time, and the year that you add the money is when you get the charitable deduction on it. So if you put in like $50,000 in 1 year to your donor-advised fund, you get a $50,000 charitable deduction that year. Then, though, here's where it's different. You can then choose how you want to disperse the funds. You want to give all $50,000 this year? You can. Do you want to give $10,000 a year for the next 5 years? Do you want to give it to 3 different charities? You control the donor-advised fund and how the money gets dispersed. And unlike a foundation, by the way, there's no minimum requirement of how much you have to give per year to it. So donor advised funds, for these reasons, are quite popular, as you might imagine these days. Now, again, some of the largest players in this field are companies you're probably already familiar with. Companies like Charles Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard all have a charitable division or arm that manages this type of fund. And so you can set up directly with them, and then you choose how and when you want the money to be dispersed to charity. It's an interesting idea that may appeal to someone in the audience. Okay, I know we're running short on time, so these are 6 ways you can give to charity beyond simply writing a check. They're a little more creative, but has a lot of potential for you. It might save you, again, thousands of dollars every year on your tax return. Obviously, which strategies make sense to you depends on your current financial situation, and what your estate planning already looks like, and what amendments you might want to make to that. I offer a free consultation with any of you from our supporting churches like this. Anyone that wants to call me, we can set up a phone call, a Zoom meeting, whatever you want to do, and we'll go over this together. There's no charge for that. It's confidential, and I promise you there won't be any hard sell to give to our particular institution. We'd love it if you did, but I'm going to talk to you and give you the same advice whether you do or not. So I'd encourage you to consider taking advantage of that. That's my phone number and email on the slide, and it's also on, I think, the front page of your handout. You can see me after today. I've got some index cards. If any of you want to use an index card, just give me the information after the session today. I'll keep that in my pocket here. Can I say I think it's important to do this the right way. If you're making significant changes to a estate or something that might involve your taxes, you obviously want to talk to your professionals. We're not here to offer tax or legal advice per se, and so we definitely encourage you to work with your professionals, and we'll be happy to work with them as well if we're partnering together. If you're going to take action, I would encourage you to do it soon. After hearing a talk like this, the tendency is to say, that was interesting. We had a good talk this morning, and then put the handout aside and never look at it again. I want you to take action, wherever it might be, with the information we have. As I said, one of my requests is that you'll make at least find one actionable item out of this talk that will apply to you. Some of it will be over your head, like, didn't want to hear that. But hopefully something lit a little light up in your head. You say, I need to do that, or follow up or ask questions. Again, if you want a consultation, free to you, and we'll keep all the information confidential. Be glad to do that. We have a periodic newsletter like this we send out about charitable giving from the Children's Home that we'd be happy to put on that mailing list. Again, I've got some index cards here, or you can send me your address later. We'll be glad to put you on that list. I know we're out of time. Is there a question? I know we have a microphone for questions. Great. Thank you for your time, and look forward to come up and see us sometime at the Children's Home. This is great work. Thank you. Yeah, I had to kind of rush through some of the slides, but that happens. I know. It's probably too much, but I hate to leave anything out,